Hey guys, this is going to be an instructional video on how to set up your own CO2 kit. I use the brand CO2 Art as I love their products. They do sponsor me, so keep that in mind while we're going through the whole thing. To start off, I'm going to talk about what you actually need to set up your CO2, to inject CO2 into your aquarium. So the first thing most people think about is the regulator itself. So what this does is it regulates the pressure of the CO2 in the tank. And basically, it's regulating the pressure so that you can then provide a decent pressure to your tank and you're not blowing the diffuser off its piping. So first of all, on this side, we've got our bubble counter. This just gives you a rough indication of the kind of amount of CO2 coming out. You shouldn't use this as to check the CO2 in your tank. You should always use a drop checker, which is another piece of equipment you'll actually need. We'll talk about the drop checker later in the video. The other two dials here, seeing as this is a dual stage regulator, we've got our pressure dial that comes actually in the bottle. So this is the amount of pressure in the bottle, and the amount of CO2 we've got left. And then we've got a working pressure gauge, which this kind of shows you how much CO2 is being applied to the tubing and the diffuser inside the tank. I generally run this around about 30 psi, maybe 35, 40 at most. The dial on the front here, the big knob, this is actually your working pressure knob, so you'll be able to adjust the working pressure using this. On the side of the regulator itself, you'll also have your bubble counter, but next to it you'll have a little tiny dial, and this is like your needle valve. So this is for minute adjustments of how much CO2 is actually being output through the bubble counter, through the tubes into your diffuser. And yeah, as I said, you can gauge this by how many bubbles are coming outside of the bubble counter itself, but really you want to be looking at a drop checker inside your tank to judge how much CO2 you're actually injecting. Because I keep mentioning the drop checker and it's such an important piece of equipment, you'll want to get a drop checker, which is this kind of little glass vial, and you want to get a drop checker solution. So what this does is it comes in, you get your solution, you put your solution inside the little glass drop checker itself, and you'll put this inside your tank. And what this will do is you'll indicate 3 different colors, or a range of different colors. Blue being not enough CO2, yellow being too much CO2, and green being enough CO2. So you want to be kind of looking for a green or a light green color in your drop checker. There's many different styles of drop checker, but I use a little tiny one like this, if the camera will focus. There we go, and you can kind of see this drop checker solution is sort of green. It's the start of the day. The camera's just focusing again. It's the start of the day, so it's kind of a darker green, although you ideally want to be a lighter green. That drop checker I just showed you hangs on the top of the rim of the aquarium, but you can also find drop checkers you just put on the inside glass inside the actual aquarium itself. So back to the regulator itself, we've got our solenoid valve down the bottom here, and what a solenoid is, it's basically an on and off switch. It'll turn your CO2 flow on and off using basically an electric cable plugged into your wall, but really we want to ideally plug this into a household timer so that we can change when we want the CO2 on and off, and we just don't have it running 24/7. Other important pieces of the whole kit itself would be your tubing. So you really want to be buying a CO2 resistant tubing, such as the one on this tank right here. As you can see, this is the grey one from CO2 Art. And of course you need the tank itself, the CO2 tank. You can look at many different options for this. In the past I've used SodaStream canisters, you can use paintball canisters, you can use fire extinguishers, and also just standard CO2 tanks. So these are all the options, but if you're actually going to get, say, a SodaStream canister or a like a paintball canister, you're going to need an adapter such as this. Now these adapters allow you to regulate, kind of like stop the flow of the canister, because they're kind of disposable canisters and they don't have an on and off kind of valve or anything like this. As soon as you apply pressure on that pin, the CO2 is just going to go everywhere. So you want something you can attach to it to turn the canister on and off. And also there's a difference in thread size. So although a fire extinguisher or some CO2 canisters might actually fit the regulator itself, they're going to be a different size pin if you're using the SodaStream or the paintball. So for the SodaStream and paintball, you do need an adapter. Another really important piece of the equipment itself is the diffuser. So in this tank right here, I'm using a Bazooka Flux diffuser from CO2 Art. You can get many other diffusers. Loads of them work well. I really like this one as I think it's quite efficient. There's tiny little bubbles, and I find that they get moved around the tank much more efficiently than some other diffusers on the market. Certain diffusers don't actually cover the whole lip of the aquarium, so you might need something like up here. You can actually see a little tiny glass U-bend. It's just for aesthetics, really. You don't need it, but it makes it look a bit better. And also little tiny suction cups that kind of hold this pipe towards the glass. It makes it look a little bit better, but you don't need it. So here I'm attaching the regulator to the fire extinguisher, which is what I'm using. You can use any other canister. Just remember, you need your adapter if you're using certain canisters. And I'm going to be just doing this by hand for now, just turning the little screw onto it, the little nut. And then you're going to have to use a wrench. Now don't skip this step. It's a really important step. You want to be tightening this nut down quite tight, but tight enough that there's not going to be any CO2 escaping, but don't over tighten it as to crack the seals or anything like this or break it. But make sure it's fairly tight and there's no gas escaping. If you find there's gas escaping later on, you just have to tighten this a wee bit more. You can always contact the CO2 Art support if you're having any issues. They're really good, so do keep that in mind as well. One thing to note, before you actually attach your regulator, make sure you turn your working pressure halfway between open and closed, because if you have it one way or the other, then there's not much room to wiggle around, not much room to play. So try and keep it in the middle when you're attaching this, or before you put that you release the CO2 into the actual regulator itself. For the fire extinguisher, I have to pull the handle, which lets the CO2 into the regulator, and then I have to use this little zip tie to kind of hold the handle down. If you're not using this kind of tank, then you don't have to do this. Most tanks will just have like a little tiny screw-on valve, or the adapters for the SodaStream, you'll just turn the little knob on top. I turn the working pressure just about 30 psi. It'll work for most diffusers around 30 psi or just above that. You'll be fine. If you really want to check what the what kind of pressure or what psi you want to be turning the working pressure to for your specific diffuser, ask the manufacturer of the diffuser. I'm gonna add the pipes, the CO2 resistant tubing to the top, and obviously attach the diffuser, etc. And this is now ready for your tank. So once your CO2 kit is ready, you can plug it into your household timer, and then leave your diffuser inside the tank for a wee bit. Don't turn it on because you want it to kind of be saturated with water before you use it. And then once you turn it on, you want to make sure the CO2 is at the right level. So you're going to have to turn the bubble counter, the little valve, the little tiny precision valve on the side of the bubble counter. Maybe for this kind of size of tank, like a 45p size of tank, 10 gallon size of tank, maybe just start at like 1 bubble, 2 bubbles per second, and then adjust from there based upon your drop checker solution inside your tank. Remember, it's got to be green. Now we've talked about how to set up the kit and how to get it running, we're going to talk about what type of kind of time cycles I use for my CO2. So in my tanks, I like to use a 6 to 8 hour lighting period. And what I do with my CO2 is I turn it on 2 hours before my light turns on. And this is so that the CO2 can ramp up to an optimal level, so when these lights turn on, the plants can use the CO2 efficiently. I turn my CO2 off about 1 hour before my lights turn off, and I find this is fine. You can turn it off at the same time as your lights. It's just saving a little bit of cash, saving a little bit of CO2 in the long run. Now, the placement of your CO2 diffuser inside the tank and the outlet of your filter, it's really, really important that it's in a high flow area. So I have my pipes on this side of the tank, and I have my CO2 diffuser on this side of the tank, so that the flow hits the CO2 diffuser and it makes it go all the way around the tank, so the plants can get use it efficiently. So that all the bubbles, if I'm actually looking inside the tank, I can see the little bubbles moving around all over the tank, and this is what you want. This is really, really important that the CO2 bubbles are getting around the tank. Obviously, if you are using a different type of diffuser, which we haven't talked about yet, as I was trying to keep it quite simple, there are inline diffusers which you can put inside your piping from your filter, so that will get diffused into the water much more efficiently. But then there's pros and cons, which I won't talk about in this video. You know, you can get like leaking, but I think the easiest way, most people will be keeping a small tank. So if you get an in-tank diffuser, like I have the Bazooka Flux diffuser, it's quite a simple way to do things. So guys, I really hope you've enjoyed the video. I hope you've really taken something from this. Just remember that a CO2 kit might seem like a lot of money at the start. It can be a lot of money, but it lasts you a long time. So think of it as a long-term investment. And I think you'll enjoy the hobby a lot more if you decide to get the CO2, as all plants thrive better under CO2, and some plants don't even grow that well without CO2. So, you know, take that into consideration, and obviously put it within your budget. If you can't afford it, don't get it. But if you can, then I highly recommend it. So thank you for watching, guys. Like, comment, subscribe like always, and I'll see you in the next video. Bye bye.